I'm very honored to be back home at one of the state's finest universities, and I want to first take a moment to recognize and thank Denny and Phyllis Washington for their tremendous contributions not only to the university, but to the Missoula community as a whole. They are great examples of Montanans who generously gave back to the community where they had their humble beginnings. Let's give them a big round of applause. The Washington family, this stadium, all they've done, giving back. Also proud to join University Day in honoring Louis Adams. Congratulations, Louis, for your doctorate degree that you're receiving. And to all the members of the University of Montana faculty and deans, especially Dean Birchfield, you got quite a rousing tribute from your students. Congratulations to all the parents, both sides, friends and loved ones here today, and especially a great big congratulations to the graduating class of 2015. This is your day. I'm especially happy to be home in Montana. This place I love, this place we all love. I'm here with my entire family. My wife Mel is here, and our children Zeno and Katie and Joe are here, and Zeno's beautiful wife Stephanie, they're all here too. We made a big point, the whole family getting together this weekend, and I'm glad we're able to do that. When I was a student, just like many of you more than 50 years ago, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have iPhones. We had nothing to help us show the way. So much has changed. But getting where we want to go in life is still pretty much the same as when I was in your seat. It comes down to the choices we make and the risks we take along the way. So I want to share with you today a few of the choices I've made since I stood where you're standing now. I call them Montana choices because they're rooted in growing up in our great state of Montana. They're similar to what Asa was talking about. I think it was touching on many of the same things. 4 choices that have made all the difference in my life. 4 choices that helped me go from a ranch north of Helena to the United States Senate and now to China as ambassador. 4 choices that serve as life lessons that I urge all of you to consider as you go forward from here today. Before I share with you the 4 choices, though, I want you to understand a bit where I come from. I grew up on my great-grandfather's ranch. It's just a bit north of Helena. It stretches from the Missouri to the Blackfoot to the Little Prickly Pear. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth. And some of you may have read about it in Norman Maclean's A River Runs Through It, and basically that's where I spent much of my time. Growing up on a ranch in Montana, as I did, you learn the simple lessons of life. We appreciate the measure of life. We learn to cherish the land, respect its rugged, spacious beauty. And I'd like to share with you a passage from a letter a friend of mine wrote to his wife and to his children. It's back in 1959. Reverend George Harper was in Montana scouting for their family home, where he would soon answer his call to serve a new parish. George was on a train going back to Tennessee, and he wrote a letter to his wife and his kids to describe their new home in Montana. And here's what he said. It is the land of the big sky. You feel little standing under it in the bright sunlight of a crisp, cloudless morning, or a line on your back looking up at the night with stars so big and near you feel you can reach them and touch them. You learn what humility means. But at the same time, you feel big. There is no place for little thoughts or narrow feelings. It's just too big a country for little things. That's where I grew up. And I'm sure everyone here has experienced the beauty and awesomeness of our big sky country as my late friend George described. You wouldn't be at the university if you didn't know exactly what he was talking about. We share that common understanding here today. But Montana is more than a place, it's a way of life. You can really learn everything you'll ever need to know about life growing up on a ranch like I did, or for that matter, simply growing up anywhere in Montana. You learn the value of moderation and of hard work. You learn the importance of community and neighbors, where the weather can turn nasty and harsh, and often there aren't many people around. You learn the value of being a little philosophical. This vast, beautiful place gives a person room to think, space, to sort things out. You learn with what you've been given, work with what you've been given, and make it work. I'd like to share with you a couple of examples of Montanans who I think best exemplify for me those values. One is one of my great heroes, and he's my dad, John Baucus. Born in Great Falls, he served in the Air Force in Europe during World War II. He then enrolled right here at the university. He was a Fido Bill. But had to drop out to support his mother after his father died. A few years later, he married my mother at the Congregational Church, just a few blocks away. And he adopted me when I was 5 years old. John Baucus was one of the most influential people in my life. He taught me how to fish. He taught me how to buck bales of hay. He taught me the values of honesty and hard work. No one ever said a negative word about my dad. People just trusted him because what he said was truth. He never had ulterior motive. He was an amazing man. And he, along with my mother, Jean Baucus, instilled in me the values I want to share with you today. My dad was a Montanan. To be honest, I hardly remember my graduation day, much less what was said. Hopefully, what I share with you today will resonate a little bit. It helped you a little bit in your life. But as the famous actor Bruce Lee once said, absorb what is useful, when you're listening to all this, discard what is not, and add what is uniquely your own to what you're about to hear. When I was a student like you, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to be or do. I mean it. I had no idea. I was clueless. Kind of scared, but clueless. But that's okay. Because if your life was laid out before you, and all you had to do was follow what was expected step by step, I got news for you. That would be too easy. And one day you would look at that person in the mirror and realize it wasn't really you. Shakespeare had it right. To thine own self be true. Do what you think is best. Not what your teachers think, not what your parents want. Sorry, Mom and Dad. Or your girlfriend or boyfriend or your boss. You do what you think is best for you. There is only one of you. So be loyal to yourself, because in the grand scale of the universe, your unique time here is but an instant. So don't waste it following another's path. So 53 years ago, I realized sometimes you've just got to get off the ranch. That was my first important choice. Number one, get off the ranch and out of your comfort zone. I did something then that is probably the main reason I'm standing right here at this moment speaking with you. President Engstrom referred to it. What was it? I went to France on a study abroad program. Before then, I'd never been outside our country. It was a big deal. I mean, a really big deal in 1962, and most of us had never even been on an airplane. But as much as I appreciated life on the ranch, I wanted to learn about life beyond the ranch. Both. So I packed up and went to study in Europe, and I had no idea what it would lead to. Well, after going to school for about 6 months, I realized I had not learned a single thing. I've lived in a dorm with all American students and studied with American professors. I had not really experienced a different culture at all. I hadn't learned anything. And I had no idea how going back home was going to help me figure things out. I was scared, frankly. Actually, the Chinese have a famous ancient saying, which I, of course, did not know back then. It's read 10,000 books and walk 10,000 miles. So in 1963, I did not come back home. I took a year off from college and began walking my 10,000 miles. I put a knapsack on my back and I hitchhiked around the world for a year. I visited countries I'd only imagined: China, Japan, India, to name a few. I traveled through Europe and Africa and Asia. It was incredible. It was life-altering. I learned so much. And when you get off the ranch and when you start walking your 10,000 miles, you never know who or what you might run into. When I was in India, I actually got to meet the Prime Minister Nehru. I was staying at the YMCA in New Delhi, where another American student there said to me, "Hey, I heard the Prime Minister will meet with Americans on Thursdays. Want to go?" I said, "Sure." So I put on the best clothes I had in my knapsack, which wasn't much, went to the presidential palace that Thursday afternoon, and lo and behold, they let me in. Then lo and behold, I got to actually meet him, Prime Minister Nehru. And not only did I meet him, I spent 30 minutes talking to him. We talked about the Chinese border crisis, and basically he just interested me, what in the heck was I doing here in India, and it's small talk mostly. But here I was, a young student from Montana, in my wrinkled blazer, and no idea what to do with my life. And I was talking to this man who led one of the world's greatest countries to independence. So I knew right then and there, right then and now, that getting off the ranch had been the right thing to do. That year of hitchhiking across the world was the defining journey of my life. Why? Because I realized how people across the globe are all interconnected. Lewis refers to it. Earl Olperson does as well. I was in what was then the Belgian Congo, looking around a tropical jungle, trying to hitch a ride up the Congo River, and then it just hit me like a sledgehammer, an epiphany. The world's getting smaller, I realized. Our natural resources are diminishing. We have to find ways to work better together if we're going to work things out, because the world is getting so much smaller. The clock is ticking. And up to that point, my life was set for me. My path was laid out. I'd grown up thinking one day, sooner or later, I would go back to Helena, run our family ranch, and you know what? Everybody else thought that too. But you see, it's the things your curiosity causes you to trip over that really show you the way. And you have to get off the ranch to explore that curiosity. I learned in East Africa that you really only need 1 or 2 meals a day, only to shower once a week. You get sick, figure out where to get help, where to get your next meal, where you're going to sleep, and you learn to appreciate simple things in life. You learn there's always a way. That's one of the biggest lessons I learned. There's always a solution. There's always a way. Always. It wasn't until years later that I realized hitchhiking around the world had planted a seed in me which later germinated into my interest in public service. That journey set into motion a career spanning almost 40 years in the U.S. Congress. It created opportunities for me that I'd never dreamed of, and that journey continues today, taking me back to China more than 50 years later to serve as U.S. Ambassador. So I say to you, choice number 1, don't stay on the ranch. Get out of your comfort zone. Be true to yourself. As the late Steve Jobs said at a commencement address just 10 years ago, quote, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. And have the courage to follow your heart and intuition." My second choice I want to talk about is embracing change. You have to embrace change. The world is changing so quickly, so fast. Be willing to walk in somebody else's shoes. Learn something new and exciting about a person, about a culture, a new job. Try something new. Sometimes you've just got to leap into the void. And it's never too late. At the age of 72, I changed my path completely. When I announced that I wasn't going to seek my 7th term to represent the U.S. Senate, my plan was to come back home, settle here in Montana with Mel, my wife. I wanted to come home and enjoy our state, be based in our state, build a house here at home, but be open to a new chapter in my life. I had served you in the Senate for 36 years, and I loved it. It was the best job in the world. You guys are great employers. You're terrific. But I'd done that. I wanted to do something completely different. A deep dive into something new and challenging. As the Chinese philosopher Mengzi once said, quote, "We live when we are challenged. We die when we're at ease." We live when we are challenged and die when we're at ease. I couldn't agree more. So it's like what you're about to do. Open a new chapter in your life. I had no idea what my new chapter would be. You don't know what yours are. I didn't either. But then, for me, something happened out of the blue. President Obama called me during halftime at the 2013 Cat Grizz game in Bozeman. Literally at halftime. The score was 7-7. You might remember. He asked me if I wanted to be ambassador to China. I was ecstatic. That's exactly the kind of change and new adventure I was looking for, and I obviously told him yes. I'd be so honored. I was so excited. And to top it off, you'll remember, the Grizz won the game 28-14. So I never imagined 50 years ago when I had that knapsack on my back that I'd end up here. Embracing this unexpected change has blessed me with the new opportunity to serve. It's so important, this U.S.-China relationship. It's been said many times. It'll be said many times in the future. The U.S.-China relationship is the most important relationship between two countries in the world. We're so different, our two countries, and we absolutely have to get this relationship right. How well we as Americans and Chinese manage this relationship will determine the quality of life for Americans, the quality of life for Chinese, and the quality of life to some degree of most people in the world. It is so important to get this relationship right. It's also important to you, and to your children, and your children's children. This is a big deal. We are the two largest economies in the world. At a defining moment in history, we just have to get it right. There is no choice. The University of Montana certainly understands this. In fact, many years ago, former U.S. Senator Ambassador Mike Mansfield stressed the need to get our relationship right with China. And that was right here in his first lecture at the Marine and Mike Mansfield Center in 1968. I went back and I read that speech. It's stunning. He was so far-sighted. Mike, as we know him in our state, was especially far-sighted in urging the U.S. to work better with China. That was the main point of that 68 speech. He encouraged Americans to travel to China, and this was before you could even get permission to go to China. His wise words 45 years ago helped lead the way for President Nixon to go to China in 1972. That historic trip by Nixon to China led to the opening of those borders which are wide open today. Millions of people today travel between our two countries every year. The number is growing. 20 years ago, the U.S. Embassy in China granted only 30,000 visas to Chinese citizens per year to visit our country. Now we issue as many as 30,000 per week. Our ties have fortunately been strengthening and growing. They have to. We're basically joined together at the hip, U.S. and China. They're growing since the United States and China normalized relations in 1979. And we're now reaching heights we never thought possible. Mike would be so proud. Trade between our countries was more than $600 billion last year alone. That's billion with a B. That's about the size of Switzerland's entire economy. More than $1 billion of goods and services flow between our two countries each and every day. That sure buys a whole bunch of iPhones. And the United States and China are working together on some of the defining challenges of this century, from food security to pandemic diseases like Ebola, countering piracy off the Gulf of Aden, getting Iran and North Korea to curb their nuclear ambitions. And our work right now on climate change is especially critical, affecting every one of you here today. Just look around. We Montanans find an extension of ourselves in this big sky that's above us right now, and the renowned beauty of our great outdoors. There is no place like this in the earth. Like many of you, I grew up this way, and I firmly believe that we all have a moral obligation when we leave this place to leave it as good a shape or better shape than we found it.